everyone, welcome to another episode of the Stitches and Scribbles podcast. My name is Erin, and you might notice that this podcast looks like it was filmed the same day as the last one, and that would be correct. I am trying to batch film a lot of we're just gonna start over. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Stitches and Scribbles channel for another podcast episode. My name is Erin, and if you're watching this and thinking it looks like maybe it was filmed the same day as the last podcast episode, you would be correct. I am trying to batch film a lot of content for my channel. Mentioned this in previous ones, but currently house hunting, anticipating a busy fall. I'm in peak craft fair season at the moment, so I'm trying to get content pre-made so that if there are weeks where I just don't have time to film, it's not as big of a deal. Although I know that you guys would be understanding if I skipped a week at some point because I needed to, but the goal is to keep a steady stream of content for you all. And this is the best way for me to do that right now. So if you watched the last episode of the podcast, I went through some of my crochet finished objects and whips and showed you some yarn that I ordered from Hobbii. Today I have all of my knit finish objects and whips from the last month or so. This is being filmed end of July, so these are my June and July projects for the most part. But we're going to be focused on knitting today, and I also have a haul to show you both from Hobby Lobby and from one of my local yarn stores. So lots of content today. That's why I also split it in half from the last one, so that it wouldn't be one ridiculously long podcast episode. But let's go ahead and dive in. So for the last month, I have been really working on knit projects because I noticed before that I was really focused on crochet, and I was doing crochet everything, moving through projects pretty quickly, using up yarn from my stash, all good things. But I had some knit projects that I had started a long time ago, or yarn that I had been really excited about but I needed to frog the project and start over. So I ended up actually doing 3 projects in the last month that were all made with hand-dyed yarn. So I was really excited about all of those. Excited to actually use my hand-dyed yarn, because I definitely fall into the trap of I get hand-dyed yarn and then I am really hesitant to use it on anything because it's so special that I take forever deciding what I want to make with it. But I ended up getting a pretty good variety of projects here, so I'm very excited. The first one that I made, I'm calling this my birthday scarf because I made it using yarn that I both got for Christmas and for my birthday. So for Christmas, I got 3 mini skeins of Emma's yarn. Unfortunately, I do not remember the color names, but you can see those 3 colors in the middle right here. I know this one was called Just Add Salt. I think one of these was called Group Hug, but I don't know if it was the purple one or the turquoise one. But I got those 3 in my stocking. My mom actually purchased them from the same local yarn store I'll show you in the haul later. And then my birthday is in February, so I had a friend who got me the purple yarn. She lives in the Pacific Northwest, so she got it from a local yarn store near to her. And it's this really cool fuchsia purple color. It's showing up very bluish on camera, at least that's what it looks like in my viewfinder, but it is a very warm, almost magenta-y purple. But when I saw all of the colors together, I thought it was a really exciting, fun color palette, and because my favorite color is green but my birthstone is purple, this color combination just makes me think of my birthday specifically. So I used them all in one project. I used double stockinette stitch, which means that it's basically a knitted tube like if you were doing it on double pointed needles, but you do it on flat needles, and you're basically slipping every other stitch so that each row you do is actually only half a row. So you knit like half the stitches one way and half the stitches going the other way. But I made it long enough so that I could get 2 loops out of it. It's an infinity scarf. And I wanted it so that one loop would be the bigger blocks of color and the other one would be all of the tiny stripes. So that definitely was successful. I'm really excited to wear this in colder months because it's like a bright, fun, kind of quirky pop of color. So I'm really excited about this. I also really liked double stockinette stitch for this project because I could do the pinstripes without getting like the wrong side stripe effect. Because usually if you do stripes in knit flat, on the reverse side you'll see the row where you started a new color, so it's not like a clean stripe. But with the double stockinette stitch, you don't, the like back side isn't showing because it's inside the tube. So I really liked that for like the tiny stripe effect. I think it turned out really, really nice. So I'm very excited to wear that as it gets cooler. Of course, right now it's July when I'm filming this, so it's going to be a while, but I think it turned out really, really pretty. And also, I think getting yarn in my stocking was very, very exciting. I was really happy to get yarn in my stocking, even though I helped pick it out, so I knew that it was coming. But that was my first finished object to show you in my knit pile. The second one is actually also an infinity scarf, but this one was made with a mini set that I purchased from my local yarn store, which is called Cream City Yarnery. And it is a Fangirl Fiber set. She does, I believe she just posted, I don't know if it was the pre-order or like it's available to order, her Autumn and Stars Hollow set. But also you're going to be seeing this a month later, so the pre-order might be closed by now, but either way, I think she does, this is definitely the second time at least she's done this colorway. I don't know if she does it every year, but last year Cream City Yarns had a mini set where you could get all 5 colorways, which is what I got. So just to kind of give you a close-up of each color, and I don't know what the color names are, they weren't on the mini labels. But we have this one, which is orange and white with little splotches of black. We have this one that's orange and green and white. We have the black, purple, orange, and gray with a little bit of white. We have the white and yellow with pops of orange and black and olive green, I guess, and the purple, orange, and white. And then I supplemented this with a plain black yarn that I got from Hobby Lobby. It's one of the like fine weight acrylic yarns, but I knit in this kind of chevron design and did the black yarn between each of the minis. So I didn't really do a specific number of rows for the minis. I just went until I was out of yarn and then did smaller black sections. I then also did a crochet edging on this. But I really like how this one turned out as well. Definitely very like Halloween looking, but I also like that because I put all of the colors together, I can kind of shift it around to like let the colors I want to show more instead of being in the back. But very excited about this one. I also had never done a like wavy or chevron pattern in knit before, so that was really fun to experiment with. I don't think I used a tutorial for it as far as I can remember, but I know this was both this one and the other infinity scarf were really old whips that were sitting in my craft cart, which now lives in the basement of my parents' house, but before was in my office in my apartment. And these two projects definitely both carried over from my apartment, which I moved out of in March. So they were definitely just sitting in a bin for a really long time, so I'm glad I got both of those done. They also were both pretty easy projects, so they were my movie watching projects. At my parents' house, their TV is actually in their sunroom, so I now have a bin that lives out there, like tucked in a corner, for my movie watching projects. And I do prefer to knit while watching movies rather than crochet, because if it's like a simple stitch pattern for knitting, I can do it without looking at it, which is helpful when it gets dark and we're watching the movie with the lights off. I can still work on the project just with the light from the movie. So I usually keep my like plain garter or plain stockinette stitch projects as movie watching projects, just because I can do that without looking, whereas I can't really do that with crochet. I can a little bit if it's like granny stitch and the yarn doesn't split very easily, but otherwise I just stick to knit projects. I think because of like how my fingers are on the needles, I can feel where the next stitch is a lot more easily than in crochet. And since with knitting all of the stitches are like lined up on the needle, you don't have to like search for the next one like you do with crochet. But yeah, so those two projects got finished while watching movies. And the next finished project I have is a gigantic triangle shawl. I'm going to try to get as much as I can in here. And this was also made with yarn from Fangirl Fibers. This was a month of October box that I purchased last year, so that you unwrapped one skein of yarn each Friday in October, because last year October had 5 Fridays. And it was my favorite murder themed. So I unwrapped all of them. I like showed it on my TikTok. I definitely showed it in a podcast, so you can find that information in an old video. But this was one where I really struggled with what I wanted to do with the yarn, because it was one full skein and 4 not like tiny minis, but like half skeins. So it was kind of like an odd amount of yarn, and I didn't 100% know what the yardage was on any of them. So I didn't want to do a project where I needed a specific yardage or where I wanted the colors to go in specific places, because I kind of didn't know when I would run out of each color. So I decided to do a really simple corner to side garter stitch shawl, and I just striped wherever I felt like it. There was no pattern to this other than every time I switched to a new color, I kind of did it gradually. So you can see like on the yellow stripe, when I started the yellow, I went from the green, 2 rows of yellow, 2 rows of green, 2 rows of yellow, 2 rows of green, and then did my yellow. So I did that pattern everywhere. I also made sure there was a stripe of green between each of the other colors, because green was the full skein. I then also learned how to do an applied I-cord edging, so I reserved some of the yellow colorway to do that edging at the end. But this turned out super cozy, and I usually wear my shawls as scarves, but this one's definitely big enough and stretchy enough that it would be comfy over the shoulders as well. But I love how this turned out. I love this color palette. Green is my favorite color, so of course I love the green. But I was surprised at how much I loved the yellow, because the yellow has like splotches of black and like olive green in them. And I really liked the pink as well, because it has splashes of red and like deeper browns in it. I don't know if you can see on there, but really like this one. Really happy with how it turned out. Glad I finally like picked something and finished it. I did start this originally as a crochet shawl, but I really didn't like how it looked, and So I'm glad I tore it out, and I'm really glad I did the bold like striping stitch for that one because I think it was really effective with the colors that I chose. I do have 2 knitting whips to show you. The first one is gonna look a little funky on the needles. Also, apparently I left off halfway through a row, so I'm in the middle. But I'm actually using the hexagon pattern concept from crochet to try to make a knitted vest. So my goal is to knit the vest in 2 pieces where each piece is like the front panel, the side, and half of the back. So the increases are worked the same way that a crochet hexagon cardigan would be, but this is 100% an experiment. So you can see I started in the middle here, and then this edge is going to be the armhole. And of course all the other stitches are scrunched, so it's not really great to show off, but you can see where all those increases are. But I am working this in Lion Brand Mandala. I'll show you the skein, I haven't started yet. And this is in the color Dragon. So it's blues, browns, and greens. And I'm planning on using 1 cake for each side of the vest. So this one is definitely an experiment. I don't even know if I have enough yardage to make it fit me, but it was yarn that I just had in my stash. I think I got it on clearance at some point. I don't really know what my original plan was for the yarn, so I figured might as well just use it up and somebody will get wear out of it, whether I keep it for myself or give it to a friend. But that I'm hoping will be a tutorial. I talked about this a little bit in the last episode of the podcast because I bought some bamboo yarn from Hobbii that I think would pair really nicely and make those increases really easy to see so that they're both decorative and functional, if that makes sense. Whereas in like the mandala yarn, it's more about like the striping effect and the colors versus knitting it up in a solid color. So we'll see how that goes. That might be a tutorial. I don't know if I would do it this year or save it for next year, but we'll see. And hopefully I can do a full hexagon knit cardigan sometime soon because I have not seen that anywhere else. So I would love to be the first person to figure out how to do that because I think that would be really cool. Definitely haven't seen it anywhere else, so we'll see how that goes. My second knit work in progress is just a plain triangle shawl. It's top down, so the top edge looks like this. I've got a spine increase down the middle. I have I-cord edging that I'm knitting as I go, so not an applied I-cord edging like the My Favorite Murder shawl. And I'm doing knit yarn over knit increases, and you can see it's this beautiful ombre effect. And here's the cake. This is the Twister Halloween from Hobbii in color number 2. I know the color name had something to do with pumpkins, but I don't remember what it was called. But this has been, both this and the vest that I'm working on have been my movie watching projects, also my Take 2 craft fair with me projects. And actually in this one I have some of my Favorite Murder stitch markers on there that came with the My Favorite Murder yarn in that Halloween box. But I like these because they're lightweight, so they don't weigh the project down. I'm also using a little skull progress keeper that I made to kind of mark my progress. Really excited for that shawl to be done because it's the perfect fall colors. I've been really into oranges and browns lately, along with like olive greens and golden yellows. So I'm glad to add an orange piece to my collection because I don't have any other orange pieces except for obviously the Autumn and Stars Hollow scarf that I just showed you. But let's dive into the haul. So this haul has a backstory. I this year decided that I want to attempt to do Vlogmas. I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like yet, But I love watching Nitty Natty's Vlogmas, and there's a couple other YouTubers that I watch, like Sierra Schultzy. I watch her Vlogmas. And I don't know if, I can't remember who else I was watching this year for Vlogmas. Oh, Corner of Craft. I was watching her Vlogmas this past year too. So I kind of want to try it. I guarantee that at some point I will have to skip days. So this could be interesting, but I was debating whether or not I wanted to purchase a yarn advent, because Nitty Natty always purchases a yarn advent that she goes through, and she like plays a guessing game with her husband where they both know what the overall theme of the box is. She sees the color name and he sees the color, and then they try to guess the opposite thing. So like, since she has the name of the color, she'll try to guess what the color is and like ask him a bunch of questions to like try to figure it out. And Corner of Craft dyes her own yarn advents. So I really wanted to do it. I also loved the Fangirl Fibers My Favorite Murder October box, but I realized that yarn advents, especially the ones where you open something every day, are really expensive, and we're trying to save for a house. So that seemed very out of budget for me, especially to not know what the colors were going to look like and not necessarily have a project lined up to do something with them. That just seemed like a really big risk. I don't mind purchasing expensive yarn if I have a project in mind. Like if I'm going to buy hand-dyed yarn, I think I'd rather know what it looks like. Other than the My Favorite Murder yarn, I knew I was going to love that because it was going to be like kind of Halloween-y fall colors. Like that was a pretty good guarantee of what the colors were going to look like, at least in my mind. I think I guessed pretty accurately ahead of time. It was very close to what I pictured. Versus like the yarn advent calendars, like some of them are Christmassy themed, some of them are definitely not Christmassy themed. It's also 25 different colorways, so there's a huge variety in what the colors look like. And that just seemed like not a good use of my yarn budget for this year. But I still wanted to do something fun for Vlogmas. So I started looking for patterns of like what's something where I could add to it a little bit every day that would be interesting for people to like watch on a daily basis and see like where I'm at in the pattern. And I should have looked at her name before I sat down to film this, but I believe her Instagram handle is PNW Knit Designs or Knitwear Designs, but she's obviously based in the Pacific Northwest, and she creates these beautiful colorwork cowl patterns and some other things too, but I found her because of the cowl patterns. So I decided I wanted to make one of her patterns, and there were two that I was debating between. So she has a series of doodle cowls that are, I believe the correct term is modular patterns, where you can like swap out what section you want to do at each time. But the doodle patterns have a bunch of different colorwork designs where then you can pick what order they go in, what the striping pattern is, all of that. And she has a Christmas one that is absolutely adorable. A lot of the samples were in bright reds and greens, very festive, very like kitschy looking Christmas designs. But it was so cute. I absolutely loved it. But then she also has one called Sitka Spruce that is like pine cones and pine boughs. So I decided that I wanted to knit one of those two. I was going to go to my local yarn store and pick out the yarn and actually get like some good quality hand-dyed yarn to make it out of. And I wasn't sure which pattern I wanted to do. So I figured like, okay, well when I get there, I'll see what the colorways are and that'll make the decision for me, because the doodle cowl needed, I think it said 3 to 5 colors, and the Sitka Spruce only needed 2. So since I was shopping in July, I figured, okay, either they will have a bunch of really bright reds because of the 4th of July, or they will have no reds because that's like a very holiday color. So it turns out my second guess was correct. I could not find any reds. But I did have a lot of fun shopping at Cream City Yarn. So I decided to pick yarn to make the Sitka Spruce Cowl. And I got 2 colors from Emma's Yarn, and I got 2 skeins of each. So this is the Emma's Yarn Crazy Beautiful Color Simply Spectacular DK in the color Kale, which is like a very deep tonal olive green. And then I also got 2 skeins of Sprout, which is a very pale, not mint green, it's definitely more on the olive to yellow green side, but like a sage, really pale sage. And I had a lot of fun talking with the cashier who was there because she helped me pick like really high contrast colors while still being all green. So those will be used for the Sitka Spruce Cowl. But then while I was there, I saw a couple other colors that I really liked. She could tell I told her that I was doing Christmassy things. And she was like, oh, I think we have 1 skein left of one of Emma's Christmas yarns in here somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Otherwise, I'd pull it out for you. But we ended up finding it. It was like buried in a little basket. So this is also the Simply Spectacular DK in the color Christmas Sprinkles. So it's a white with little flecks of green and red, and the green in here is almost a teal blue color. So then to go with it, I got a skein of the color Harbor. And this one is a different yarn. This is the Drapey DK instead of the Simply Spectacular DK, but it was the same weight, so it's fine. And this is the color Harbor. So when paired together, they look like that. And I think I'm actually going to recreate the striping effect from my birthday scarf with these 2 to make like a peppermint candy inspired infinity scarf and just do tiny stripes of these 2 colors repeating. So very, very excited about that. I was a little sad that I couldn't find yarn for the holiday doodle cowl because I think that was actually the pattern I preferred out of the 2, but I talked myself into it anyway because I was like, well, but the Sitka Spruce one I can wear into January, so even though I'm knitting it during December, I'll still get wear out of it in the next couple of months versus like if I did the holiday doodle cowl, I probably wouldn't. But then I went to Hobby Lobby because I needed other things, and of course I stopped in the yarn section. So the thing I actually went in there for was some cotton yarn. This is I Love This Yarn cotton print in the color 230 Woods. And I got 2 of these to knit or crochet something for a neighbor who is currently going through chemo, and she's been wearing lots of like little hats and like head wraps, so I wanted to like knit something as a surprise for her. But I figured the cotton would be nice because it won't be quite as hot, so as a like summer to fall or even like warmer fall weather color, I thought this would be great. It's a very creamy colored base with flecks of brown and olive green and mint green. So I thought that would be so pretty. But while I was looking for that, I realized that the Yarn Bee sets of yarn happen to be, I forget if it was on sale or because they don't have the clearance sticker, but I think yarn was 30% off that day or something. The Yarn Bee Pigment and Fiber had a colorway called Bravado that was Christmas colors. So of course I bought it. So now I'm going to make the Sitka Spruce Cowl and the Holiday Doodle Cowl. I did get 2 of these because I wasn't sure about the yardage. These are also a lot thinner than the DK, but I'm excited. These are very much like earthy, subtle Christmassy colors, and I think it'll look super cute to do the doodle cowl in these. So I ended up getting the supplies for both things. It just worked out that way. But that's all I have to show you for this one. Thank you so much for watching and listening to my ramblings about all of my yarn shopping adventures. Make sure to check out your local yarn store if you have one in your area. They're great things to support, especially if you're looking for hand-dyed or specialty yarn. But that's it for this one. If you liked what you saw today and want to see more crafty content, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you can be notified of all of my videos. And if you want to follow me on other social media platforms, check the description. I'll have the information down below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone!